Today we have the Venerable Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche joining us. He grew up in a monastic environment and received extensive training in all aspects of Buddhist doctrine. Born into a noble Dharma family in northern India, he descends from a pure unbroken lineage of the Dzogpa Chenpo Longchen Nyingtik tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. His root teacher was His Holiness Kyabje Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche, but he also studied extensively under other great scholars and teachers. In 1989, Kongtrul Rinpoche moved to the United States with his family, and in 1990 began a 5-year tenure as the first holder of the World Wisdom Chair at Naropa University. During that time, he also founded Mangala Shri Bhuti, an organization dedicated to establishing a genuine Sangha of the Longchen Nyingtik lineage in the West. Mangala Shri Bhuti is a nonprofit organization offering programs on introductory and advanced Buddhist topics. There are MSB centers in Colorado, Vermont, Ireland, Brazil, and Japan. Every Sunday at noon Eastern Time, MSB broadcasts The Link, a live teaching by Rinpoche or one of his students. And the Link podcast contains over 500 talks from the live broadcast. Kongtrul Rinpoche is the author of 8 books, including Training in Tenderness and The Intelligent Heart. Today, he is with Banyen Books in conversation on his latest book, published in December 2020, which is titled Peaceful Heart, The Buddhist Practice of Patience. It's based on the teachings of Shanti Deva's The Way of the Bodhisattva. And this book explores how Buddhist teachings on patience can help you work with whatever disturbances arise in your life and in your mind. To learn more about our honored guest today, his work, teachings, and community, please visit www.mangalashribhuti.org. Everyone in the Banyen Books community, please join me in welcoming our honored guest today, the Venerable Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Rose. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
So your new book, Peaceful Heart, is based on the 6th chapter, often called the Patience chapter of Shanti Deva's The Way of the Bodhisattva. Can you give us a bit of background what inspired you to pick this section for your new book?
Well, this Peaceful Heart is a sequel of Training in the Tenderness. In Training in the Tenderness, I try to give as best as my ability, the kind of very, in my view, the profound teachings of the what His Holiness Dalai Lama always calls it the warm-heartedness of the human being that we all need to cherish as what we have as an ability, as well as also something that we could cultivate to increase it, so that our relation with the world and our relation with others and many of the kind of evolving issues in the world, like the issues with the environment, issues with the social justice, and issues with the, the gap that is growing really big in the world, where the wealth, equity, those who are in the hands, having more and more and more, and those who are not in the haves are becoming poor and poor. And at some point, I think that is going to become a very difficult thing to reconcile. So, how to reconcile all of this really comes from our own mind. And in the Buddhism and in the uh, training of the Buddhism, we have the wisdom and the compassion, and that wisdom relates with our ability to think and analyze, and also to really be able to become clear on the sort of what is the brewing causes and the conditions for problem, and how to resolve them. And then the compassion is more to do with our sort of emotions, what we feel in our heart, and the kind of a sensitive feelings of our own minds, and its ability to sort of feel empathy for, of course, oneself, and then from oneself, how one feels for oneself, to extend that to others, because others are also human beings, or others are also sentient beings. So, so that is the kind of training in the tenderness, and then as to protect that kind of in a tender heart, if you are able to develop and put and also to really preserve that, to be your lifelong path. The patience practice is very, very important, and without the patience practice, I think we could get very easily um, thrown off from our own kind of tracks of being a spiritual person, as well as also a good-hearted person, with so much sometimes life has a lot of challenges, and challenges brings a lot of stress, and stress also sort of sometimes, if we are not, especially in the modern world where actually everything happens so fast, we are not quite careful. It could bring a lot of sort of impatience that turns into hostility, and that turns into sort of a resentment, and that turns into kind of eating our own hearts, as well as also ruining our relations with the others. So patience, our practice is sort of what allows us to protect our own sort of good heart and the tender heart training. So that's why I think this chapter, and this chapter being sort of as a sequel to uh, the previous book, Training in the Tenderness, I thought maybe I should write something, or I should actually at least try to bring something out to the public.
Thank you. For those who might not know, or even those who do, can you illuminate us a little bit on this, on Shantideva, who he was, and his story?
Well, Shantideva was 6th century, I think, towards the end of the 8th century, towards beginning of the 8th century. And he was a prince, and he was a noble prince who was to descend on the throne. And the day that he was to descend on the throne, he had a dream of his deity, who's Manjushri, and Manjushri saying, "This is my throne, and I'm your teacher, so you cannot be sitting on my throne." So then he took that as a sort of a sign that he should dedicate, and he should um, commit himself to the monastic tradition and live as a monk. So then he joined, he left the palace, he ran away from the palace and he joined the monastic community, and he studied, and he was brought up in the Nalanda University. And then at some point he became very, very sort of, learned and realized, but nobody knew. But then, they came to realize how learned and realized he was when he was asked to teach, and he came and taught the Bodhisattva, the Bodhisattva's way of life. And then ever since then, this text, the Bodhisattva Avatara, I think it's one of the most loved texts in the noble land of India, as well as also in Tibet. I heard in the noble land of India itself, there are about 100 commentaries on the root text. So he was a great sage, and one of His Holiness Dalai Lama's teacher, who was Kongtrul Rinpoche, a great master. He said that ever since this book, there's not been any book like this that sort of illuminates how to sort of get in touch with the human emotions, and how to transform the human emotions with the various sort of subtleties and great advices. So I really do believe that too. That's his story.
Thank you. And what does it really mean to be on the Bodhisattva path and to generate this bodhicitta that you refer to often in your book?
The Bodhisattva's way of life is, well, we have a life, and we could definitely sort of commit and dedicate our lives to sort of serve our own, only the single kind of individual and its needs and its meaning and its welfare, or we could sort of embrace while doing that as well, to serve the community and to serve the humanity as well. And doing so, I think we need this sort of a good heart or the altruism to sort of really reach out to the other human beings or the sentient beings who are in the same boat as we are, wishing to be happy and longing to be free from suffering, and needs to be in the conditions of happiness and in the needs of being free from the conditions of suffering, just like ourselves. So, I mean, many people are just, without being in the spiritual path or spiritual training, naturally have this kind of incentive to serve communities or serve humanity, but then to have a sort of a real kind of guided sort of wisdom to embrace and guided emotions to develop how to one to go about and do that. That's really very helpful. And then doing so, I think it really brings a tremendous sense of meaning in one's life. And it also helps us to kind of purify a lot of our own self-destructive, afflictive emotions. And also it brings a lot of kind of a harmony ourselves with the world and others. So that's the kind of a bodhisattva's way of life, and bodhicitta is the means to do that. So
thank you. You base the foundation of the teaching in this book is really looking at the 8 worldly concerns and the 72 ways we get disturbed. So I'm wondering if you can just expand on those concepts for our audience.
well, that's a that's a quite an in-depth conversation, but I will try, because I think that's very, very important. When we say 8 worldly concerns, it sounds like, something that, egoistic mind sort of gets it out of kind of having a huge ego gets involved. But actually, in reality, we do have a self. We do have an attachment to the self, and that kind of self and attachment to the self, where actually you have an appropriate care for yourself and to look after your own welfare and look after your own family's welfare, and so as also your progress in life and security and so on and so forth. That is not really any kind of I feel something that we need to really get rid of or see that as a problem, but in doing so, sometimes we get this sort of extra strength, extra kind of volume, extra kind of a power that out of the habit develops that in order to do any of the kind of self-care, we can kind of lose the perspective that that we are dealing with the other sentient beings, that we are dealing with other human beings who are just like ourselves, who wishes to be happy and who longs to be free from suffering, who is in the dire needs of happiness, who is in the dire needs of getting rid of their conditions of suffering, just like ourselves. So losing the kind of sight of that and being sensitive to other living beings around us, then what happens is that then we can actually sort of, in order to try to take care of ourselves, we can do it unconsciously, of course, not often consciously, most of the time unconsciously, on expense of others' welfare, on expense of others' sort of, suffering. So when we do that, then what you give comes back. That's kind of a natural physics and law. So then even though immediately you don't get some kind of repercussions or suffering, your mind gets sort of sub-absorbed, and getting sub-absorbed in there, then you have a lot of your own internal sufferings, as we see people who are narcissistic and people who are quite sub-absorbed, how they are sort of, suffering so much, lacking any kind of appreciation, or lacking any kind of empathy, or lacking any kind of sense of recognition of others' life, or others' accomplishments, or others' welfare. So this chapter, I think, the patience chapter, kind of is based on recognizing, we have the self, and then we all, do or wish to be happy. We all long to be free from suffering, and then that's just kind of the innate drive, so to speak, innate sort of instinct. How it manifests sometimes is then into thoughts, into our sort of attachments, in our hearts, we are always, this word in Tibetan is called sepa. Sepa is sort of a grasping after, jonesing, and the instinct in itself, without the kind of uh, giving a rise to the sepa or the grasping or the jonesing, doesn't accomplish anything. So the jonesing comes up, jonesing has to have a focus, right? So then we focus on, four kind of, so to speak, of positive things, the first of the four positive things, what we sort of hope and jones is, we hope for sort of, physical and mental well-being, which in the kind of a basic level, it is not any problem, but we are always constantly wanting more, physical, uh, well-being and more kind of a mental well-being, um, out of being kind of a dissatisfied, like, you want to upgrade your comfort over and over and over, and then being dissatisfied with what you have, and then, mentally kind of being uh, upset. So we want to upgrade. And then that leaves you with a sort of a taste of a very kind of always unfulfilled, which is, I think, a very modern lifestyle and traits of everyone's sort of kind of, state of mind. So that's the first. And then the second thing, then what we want, what we jones is the means, I mean, in order to upgrade your physical comfort and well-being, and therefore mental sort of like happiness and joy, uh, uh, as well out of that, and as on top of it, you need to have the means, right? So then we jones for the means, and the means a lot of the times comes down to what in Tibetan we have one a word for money, kunga tundup. Kunga tundup is a very, very good word for money, because kunga means everyone's liking, Tundup means that which allows you to accomplish everything, So we jones for economic, progress, economic security, economic kind of like means to increase in our life, and that also just in the basic level, what you need and what you want and what you could possibly obtain as no problem. But then, as a human being, we never get satisfied. There's almost a sense of the more you have, as there is in Tibetan, we have a kind of a definition for rich people or rich a person, which it says wanting more as you have more is the definition of a rich and wealthy, so to speak, So then, that becomes almost a drive that sort of like runs your whole life. And, so there is that second. But this is all in a positive light, or all in the hope, right? So that's that. And then, not only just that, we want, the third thing is we want to be recognized. We want to be, heard about. We want to have that reputation of, in whatever field you are, that you are so and so, and you are, very, very sort of successful and very, very, rich, or very, very, talented singer, or very, very talented, dancer, or very, very talented actor, or this or that, or this or that. You want that kind of like a fame name, you know. So that's the kind of a third thing on top of the comfort and the means, and then the reputation, you know. Then immediately, most probably, what we always hope is we want to always hear something pleasant that comes to our ears, that sort of like confirms us, that sort of makes us feel good, that makes us sort of feel like, our spirit is kind of lift up. But that, sometimes, I mean, that's a very natural to have some of that pleasant, always, uh, to come in into your ears and hear and make you feel appreciated, or make you feel, acknowledge that's good. But then sometimes, that almost goes to the point of we want to surround ourselves with sycophants, right? We want always somebody, to always tell us what we want to hear and hear what we want to hear. And when anybody sort of is a little bit sort of, critical, or even just objectively says something that maybe is not complementary to us, we feel like they're in the other side, or they don't like us, or they don't, appreciate who we are and things like that. So then that gets a little bit of a, so those are the four positive things, that we Jones and we hanker and that we hope for, the physical and mental well-being, means for that, fame, and then the pleasant, sort of like a sweet sound bites for us to kind of hear and be confirmed. So those are the four. And then when you have the hopes for those four, then you automatically set yourself to have an aversion, aversion or fear for the four that are opposite of those, you know. So we have aversion, and we fear and we dread to kind of lose the physical comfort, or any of the physical related welfare that we may have, or that we have now that we might lose in the future, you know. And then also the mental too, therefore, we could be, worried about our physical welfare and the mental welfare now as we are maybe faced with the challenge, or we could be very easily worried about down the road 10 years or 15 years, and then get very depressed now, even though we are not confronted with that right now. So there's that kind of, so-called the aversion or the fear. This is also kind of a jonesing, but this is a sort of a grasping, or jonesing not, so to speak, jonesing for jonesing not to have. Uh, so so then also similarly, we could be very worried. I think the world is really always worried about, economic situations, their financial situations, because financial and economic power is seen as a means for physical and mental and environmental, surrounding welfares. So there could be a, fear or aversion of losing means. One of the kind of a downfall of the so-called the wealth, the conventional wealth. Objectively speaking, Nagarjuna has stated it has three problems. What are the three problems? The first problem is, it takes a tremendous effort, a tremendous kind of like a hardship to collect, the wealth, right? I mean, the wealth does just come unless you are with a great matter to have some kind of great inheritance or something like that. But usually it takes a lot of effort to gather the wealth first. Second, then it takes a tremendous effort to protect that wealth, what you gathered, you know. And then the third, that's not also good enough that you gathered and you have protected. You want to increase this, you know. So these are the mentally you get completely consumed and preoccupied, you know, with a lot of hopes and fears and a lot of anguish, you know. So there is that kind of a losing your economic power and economic means and abilities and what you have, you know. So that's the second. And the third is, then, if you're a doctor or if you're, artist or if you're, a politician, any small kind of, defame can sort of ruin you too, and there's a lot of fear around any kind of defame in your circle, in your world, in your environment that can ruin you, as a politician or as a teacher or as let's say, doctor or as an artist or as an, anything what you have, So there is that kind of like a sense of a very kind of anxiousness and anguish that you might, do something consciously or unconsciously, and it can sort of like, backfire on you. And then your, whole reputation could be, ruined, and your livelihood and your life could be ruined as well. And so there's that kind of, the fear of the defame, so to speak. Then the last one is you want to avoid the critics and you want to hang out with your friends closely so that, you don't hear any kind of, you know, any kind of criticism, or even with the friends, you're a little bit worried that the friends, might have talked to your critics, and now the friends might actually turn against you and say some, if you have any insecurities about, anything happening in your life or anything that you have done or anything that has, kind of negatively has come out as a press for you, you can kind of like feel a lot of, it's all maybe perhaps not going to mount up being anything big, but, for the present time, there's a lot of a sense of maybe perhaps a rejection of not wanting to hear any kind of like um, unpleasant things about yourself and your work and your losses or your, mistakes or your, kind of like downfall qualities, including physical or including your, just investment or anything like that, So there's those kind of four things, So this is sort of what preoccupies, the conventional mind and conventional mindset to always sort of, be engaged, right? So that's why it's called eight worldly concerns, four in the hopes, four in the fears, four in the kind of jonesing, four in the kind of, rejections, right? But the funny thing is, it doesn't stop there. You have the eight sets for yourself. Then you have the eight sets for your loved ones, right? So that makes it up to being 8 times 2 is 16, right? Then the interesting thing is how our mind works, psychology works, is that you have the 8 in relation to people who you don't like, people who you don't consider as your friend, but rather sort of opposed to you and your enemy. You have the opposite, right? For example, you want to hear good things about yourself, but when you hear good things about your enemy or people who you don't like, you don't like that. So you want to hear bad things about, you know, your adversary or so-called, people who you don't like and people whom you have a grudge. You know, you want wealth, you want economic progress, but when you see, your adversaries are actually amassing wealth and growing in their wealth, you don't like it, right? And you feel, that's gonna somehow, not be good for you, and then you resent that, you know and you want a good reputation for yourself, but when it comes to your adversary and your so-called people whom you disapprove and dislike and uh, uh, have some animosity, when their reputation goes up, you don't like it, So the four things that you want, when it comes to your adversary, you don't want them. The four things that don't want for yourself, you want somehow for your adversary. So there's a sort of like there's the irony, there's the kind of a twist, that what you want and what you don't want, in opposite you want, uh, you know, uh, uh, for your adversaries and for your enemies, or people whom you have resentment, people whom you have grudges, do, people whom you don't like from your heart, you want uh, them to kind of have in opposite uh, the eight things. So it makes it up to being what you call 24, right? 8 times 24. So then, our mind, how it can go into the past and then, kind of like reminisce about the past, right? So then it can disturb us in that way. And then we can also sort of presently think what's happening in our life, and then we could also sort of be quite, you know, uh, stirred up, you know. Um, and then we can also go into the future, you know, and imagine what could happen and what might happen and what, kind of, could sort of turn out and turn not out. And then we could also get quite anxious. So because we have the 3 times, and our mind can actually sort of cover all 3 times in that way, going into the past and reminisce and thinking about the present situation and imagining into the future. So our mind in that way can sort of like unconsciously always sort of like find something to disturb us, you know, and then that can eat us, they can eat our heart and our peace, and that can eat out our sort of like a well-being, while actually, not leaving your, bedroom, right? So therefore, Shanti Deva gives a very clear instructions how you could sort of first analyze where you are stuck, where your mind is, getting, caught up and bringing a lot of this kind of internal sufferings to yourself, and then how you could sort of like a very precisely, in a very kind of in a very sort of skillfully remedy yourself, and try to uproot and uh, let go of the kind of negative thinking. So that's why, the eight worldly concerns is very sort of like a, big part of this chapter.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So What you're speaking of is in the book what you call worldly or conventional thinking, the normal way that we perceive ourselves and the world around us. And then you point to these different antidotes to the suffering that we are caused by identifying with our small sense of self. And you call this often unconventional thinking and how to apply unconventional thinking in our lives. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to these antidotes now and how we can apply unconventional thinking to work through negative karma and to generate merit and positive karma in our lives.
Yeah. Well, I think, uh, there are so many wisdom in the Buddhist teachings and Buddhist mind training that is most probably going to be difficult to speak on all of them. But just for example, just one thing that I really feel very important for all of the modern people and all of the sort of uh, 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 time is. Uh, Everyone wants to feel buoyancy, you know, and feel quite sort of like a unconditionally, or maybe with the conditions, uh, feel a sense of buoyancy and a vibrant happiness in one's life, in one's mind, you know. And most of the people are, I believe, uh, as far as the kindness goes, they want to be kind, and they are kind. You know, we hear so much people doing kind things, really kind things. Like Doctors Without Borders, and in this COVID time, we have so many healthcare workers, how they put their own lives in risk, to go to the work and try to save people. So I feel that kind of an incentive to be kind is very strong. And then also, people want to be compassionate, and people are compassionate. There are so many people who are, fighting for animal rights and animal sort of, welfare. And also, there's so many people who are, very, very sort of like keen on working to have a sort of some kind of a social justice and equal kind of equity and so on and so forth. You know, I think so. I feel there are a lot of kind people in the world, and kind, not only kind but compassionate people in the world. You know, and then the more democratic world is uh, more inclusive, thinking about everyone. So that's also not a problem. But where I feel that people actually do not emphasize enough is how to be vicariously happy on behalf of others. You know, and so if you could have a sympathetic joy, you know, so this vicarious ability to be happy on behalf of others, you need to have a clean heart, you know. Even if you have a compassion, that's extra uh, uh, mm, element of your compassion, which actually makes your compassion very strong and clean. And even if you have a loving kindness, and you're doing a lot of things for others, that sympathetic joy is an extra element of your loving kindness practice that sort of allows your loving kindness practice to be a very clean and protected, you know. And when you have a vicarious ability to be or happy on behalf of um, others, you could always find reasons to be happy within in your small circle. And then if you expand it, more into a bigger circle, you could always find, reasons to be happy. And then especially when we have our own sort of a lot of this kind of uh, um, unprocessed jonesing that we have, we jones for this, we jones for that. It's just a habit of our mind that sort of like a goes in jonesing and then leaves us feel like uh, not met and unhappy. When you look, if you look outside of the uh, 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 landscape, outside of the your own kind of a platform of meeting your needs, your own individual needs, and if your own individual needs being met, then you have all reasons to be happy. You know, but if your own individual needs are not being met, and if it is someone else, regardless of whether their needs being met or not, it doesn't matter to you, or it doesn't affect you, or it doesn't sort of move you in any way, then it limits us so much to be not that often happy, you know, right? Because everything has to be about your needs being met. But in the mind training, it doesn't have to be that way. In the mind training, it could be equally, if you train yourself, if your needs are being met, you could be happy. And sometimes if you train, you could be more happy if most of your needs being met, someone else needs being met, right? Someone else having the accomplishment, someone else having the outcome, someone else having the kind of a state of joy and happiness. It doesn't have to be, you. It, you know, is vicariously you could be happy on behalf of others. You know, so when you have that kind of an ability or mental power uh, or emotional power to sort of, uh, be happy on behalf of others, like I think mothers are a good example. They could be very happy on behalf of their children, and children's, good grades or good, outcomes of their studies or sports or their, endeavors into life more so than their own, uh, right? Because of the love that they have, and some vicarious ability that they have to be happy on behalf of others. Uh, like that, if you could have, then your life becomes very rich and buoyant, and you could always feel, great sense of, uh, mm, uh, uh, how do you say, well-being from that. And you could always, think about the past and people of the past time, what they have accomplished, people of the present time, what they are doing and what they are accomplishing. And also, you could think about, including your own enemies. In one hand, maybe you have some differences and you have some unresolved issues, but in another hand, in this way, you could be happy that they are, in the means, that they are, in the kind of position to do good in the world, you know, and they are doing good. And you could be very, very sort of like in a very clean way from your heart, feel that, what you're not able to do, they're able to do. And therefore you could actually equally be happy as you're being able to do. And maybe perhaps it's better that, they're in the positions and they are doing it, because it's sort of like a, it's a much uh, uh, efficient that they're doing, you know, like a two surgeons, of a heart operation, their rivalry, and, maybe they have some kind of, let's say, some disagreements, but, one is a better heart surgeon than the other. And then the one who's better, whose heart surgery who is a heart surgeon, if he is able to operate on the heart patient, the other one should be happy because the care is about the patient, and he knows that he is not in equal to the other heart surgeon. And then if the patient gets the chance to be operated by the heart surgeon that is the better, that the other heart surgeon can be, from a good heart. However, there is some, maybe disputes or rivalry and a sense of kind of, maybe perhaps unresolved issues. But in this case, one can be very happy, that the patient gets the better of the heart surgeon to operate, and this is all to do with how you observe your mind and heart, how you keep your heart particularly. Mind can flow in any direction, but how you set your intention, how you keep your mind and heart, particularly observing your heart when it sort of like gets any erosion in the kind of unhealthy or unsolicited sort of like negativity, to cleanse out that and then replace that like an empty bottle. You could put whatever you want, and if the bottle is filling up with some kind of a poisonous, take the poison out and then clean it and then put the medicine in there, like that. If you could do, which is I think the what is so called the power of the mind, power of the mind. And as Shanti Deva points it out, if you if you're not used to, it's going to be difficult. But as you get used to by the familiarization, which is the meditation, you know, everything gets easier and easier. So in this way, I think people can feel much more buoyant and vibrant happiness in their life, not having everything to do with themselves, or not having everything to be done by themselves, you know. Like, for example, in the modern world, we all watch sports, you know. I wrote a piece a long time ago when India won the world, cricket, right? You know, I, 2 billion or almost 3 billion people went into kind of a state of an static joy. Not that every 3 billion or almost 3 billion people are on the field playing, but through the vicarious way, they can all sort of like feel that kind of joy as the player themselves are playing on the field, and Dhoni hitting that last sixer, because you are in Canada, the crickets, right? Sixer, and then as if they themselves were, hitting that, right? They all were so happy. We have that ability. It proves that we have that ability, if we are in the right state of mind and condition, So in that way, I think people can feel much more sort of happy about, happier in their life. And this is what I think is unconventional, and it's something needs a kind of internal training, that I feel that the Buddhist teachings can be very helpful.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we probably only have time for one more question. And I wanted to ask you about, I guess it's a two-part question, really. One is about the law of karma and the principle that anything negative that comes into our lives is due to our past karma, and how we respond to that is what allows us to dissolve that karma and generate merit or positive karma in the future. In relation to that, living in the world and practicing, you talk about appreciating those who provoke us, seeing the provocation or challenges of other people as an opportunity to practice patience and to burn through negative karma and generate that positive karma. I'm wondering if you can just expound on that a little bit more for our audience.
Yeah, Thank you very much. This is a very, very helpful question because, as there's always saying, uh, we have heard this, you could take a horse to the river, but you can't make a horse drink. Patience practice is a little bit like that, right? You want to, you want to be patient. The reason you want to be patient is because, you have, run out of all other resource and means to make your mind, peaceful and uh, pacify your emotions that are self-destructive and that are ruining your relation, and that not only are ruining your relation, you are, day by day, you are getting unhappy and happier, right? So people have to, I feel, you know, come to that point uh, to really want to uh, have some other alternative than the usual kind of trying to fix things from outside, you know. Usually try to fix things from outside and try to sort of change the conditions and, improve the conditions is a sort of like a beginning of the practice of the patience, but one has not really come to the real resolution to take the patience practice as a sort of a real lifelong path and a means to keep one's mind and heart peaceful and clean and also uh, uh, happy. Um, so when you get to that point, right, when you get to that point by actually somewhat having some kind of a renunciation towards your own destructive state of emotions of anger and resentment and jealousy and all sorts of kind of uh, um, other related emotions, you know, um, such as like being quite often uh, what do you call tsikpa? Tsikpa means like a burning, you know, burning and spiteful, spiteful, speaking spitefully of world and others, but in reality it's sort of coming from your own mouth and it's coming from your own heart and it's burning your own peace of mind, so with the self-awareness, self-reflection, when you come to see, okay, I need to really do something with my own mental state and my own emotional state to be transformed and changed, and that's when then you're ready to kind of accept and try out any of the wisdoms, and when you are open and ready to try out any of the experience, then you are ready to accept the past, what's happening in the present time, uh, as a result of the past, karma, and then also to kind of accept instead of sort of rejecting it, and then work with your strength of mind and patience practice to kind of pacify any kind of sense of resentment or sense of aggression that it's evoking inside of you. Not that the resentment is not there, not that the aggression doesn't come up, but as it is being noticed in your mind, as it comes up, that as an opportunity, it's not a black and white, you have it or you don't have it. As it is coming up, these are the, these are the materials that allows you to develop the patience. These are the conditions that tests you to develop the patience. These are the sort of like opportunities where actually your mind's strength can grow if you could internally work those out and come to the other side and come to have the patience and strength of the patience, you know. And then when you do try it out and when you do work in that way, you know, and then you are able to come out, you know. Like for example, in the many of the relations that we have, you know, relation, you know, like for example, in the siblings relation, you know, in the extended families, siblings relation, you know, we all come together as a family in the Christmas time or Thanksgiving time. But a lot of the times, you know, people are very apprehensive, you know, come together like that, because, you know, you could press someone else wrong button and someone else could press your wrong button and you could get into, you know, heated kind of like a conversation and emotions. Someone can get into a heated conversation and emotions, you know, in a hope to enjoy the time together and have the family bond to kind of be, you know, greatly appreciated and enjoyed in with the good foods and good gathering. But then there's a lot of, you know, fear and a lot of apprehensions, you know. So if you are a patient person, if you are able to develop that kind of a patience, you know, that you want, you know, these are great opportunities. These are great actually chances to, you know, try your patience practice and see how far you have got and how well you do. And then if it doesn't work out so well this year, you could have a more sort of like a, you know, self-analysis and a more stronger of a resolutions next time, you know, your sister says something that sort of like, you know, is as usual, sort of like, you know, goes right into your heart and it sort of like throws you off and makes you feel like, you know, you want to say and rebuke, you know, you don't. You, in the other hand, say something more complimentary. And then, you know, sort of put her in the ease and then, you know, you carry on with the dinner, all right? So in this way, you could sort of really uh, preserve a lot of the good relations that you wanted, that you have a lot of care and that you have a lot of, you know, affection to, uh, you know, persevere and thrive, you know. And it all comes down to patience practice. It all comes down to, it's not like a lack of love or bond or lack of, you know, goodwill or means, but it's all comes down to kind of a nitty-gritty patience practice and taking the opportunity in hand. So in that way, I think, you know, the society as what we have could really gain so much from more practice of patience, you know.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for giving us the honor of your time and wisdom today.
Thank you very much, Russ. I hope I didn't sort of go too much into my own kind of, you know, uh, talking about all of this and really didn't uh, mm, take the time to kind of make it short and then also have you answer more questions,
No, no,
ask more questions.
you covered many of my questions that I'd written down through your speaking, and I believe that everybody will have gotten a lot out of this discussion today.
Yeah, my whole hope is that, you know, everybody's internal lives, as with the self-awareness, as they feel the pain, that there is a, you know, solution, that there is, you know, ways to overcome. You know, as Nagarjuna has stated, Buddhas and sages didn't drop down from the sky or didn't come out of the earth. They were like us with a bondage. And then they, you know, with the wisdom and the skillful means transform their mind and they got where they are. We can all do that, you know, and we are actually able to do it. So, and we are doing it. So it just requires a patience as well, also in that too.
Thank you so much. And a reminder to everybody, Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche's latest book is called Peaceful Heart, the Buddhist Practice of Patience. It's available along with his other books at banyen.com.
Thank you.